Good morning and welcome back to the 1904 Club, the Hull City podcast from the Hull Daily Mail. And it's a festive edition. And not only that, we can celebrate 3 points and Hull City being off the bottom and out of the bottom three at Christmas. Prutts, it's almost like a Christmas wish came true.
A Christmas miracle. Yes. First time in 14. Good for the win. I'm sure we're going to get stuck right into that. But what a difference, isn't it? 3 points makes. We talked about how convoluted it was at the bottom. A big win gets you up and out of trouble. Plain sailing from here on in, surely.
Well, something like that. Morning, Kathryn. Kathryn is with us. Kathryn has got the memo about the Christmas jumper, unlike Burnsy, who is the festive Scrooge. But we'll come on to that in a minute. Kathryn, how are you? You were at the game Saturday, weren't you?
I was. It was actually the first win I've seen in 2024, which is quite remarkable. I don't get to loads of games now, but I've been to a reasonable amount, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen us win. So I checked as I was walking up, and it was Blackburn in December last year. It was the last time I'd actually seen us get 3 points. And I know we'd not won since that October, I think. So that part of it might be down to me, but not all of it. So I was just desperate to see us win, because I'm not going to go to the next 2 games. So I thought, I can't go a whole year without seeing us win. I don't think that's ever happened in my life. So very relieved that we managed to hold on this time.
Yeah, and Burnsy, we spoke about it with Prutts in the week before the game, just how important it was, and kind of everything fell into place, really, didn't it? They played really well. They won the game. Results eventually went for them. I know they fluctuated, particularly the Plymouth game, but they went their way, and we talked about being bottom at Christmas and everything that goes with that. 7 of the last 10 teams at bottom at Christmas have gone on to be relegated. It's embarrassing, all those sorts of things. And up from being bottom, 3 points, and they're outside the bottom 3 with a point to spare. It was almost the perfect weekend for them.
Terrific, and great credit to them. A couple of fellas came up to me before the game as I was going in on Saturday, said, Burnsy, the 1904 Club that's just gone was the most depressing edition you've ever done. I said, well, I think we were just being realistic. Hopefully they'll feel a bit happier today. It was, I thought it had a whiff of season defining Saturday. If they've lost that, then you are sort of a totally different show this morning that we do. But they've won it. The bonus is it gets them out the bottom 3. And there were lots of encouraging signs. I mean, let's not get too carried away. I thought Swansea were poor, and City, I can remember tweeting at one point during the game, City need to do more here if they're going to see it through. But they did do more, and they won it. And there was players like Puerta who had the best performances in a City shirt, and that made a difference. So credit to them for that. And, the manager gets his first win and all that sort of jazz. So much to be pleased about and take it. And now it's a case of can they build on it, and can they get the January transfer window right? Because it's still vital.
Not saying that Swansea manager Luke Williams was unhappy with his team's performance, but his press conference lasted, I think, 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And I think 15 seconds of that was me fumbling around trying to press record on my 3210. So he was not happy. Basically said his team were garbage. Couldn't wait to get back on the bus. Didn't think much to Hull City as a performance either. But yeah, he was not happy. Prutts, you were obviously doing the game from Sky Studios. You spoke to Ruben before the game. I know you tried to speak to him a week ago, but you didn't put 50p in the meter. So you got him this weekend. What was your kind of assessment of speaking to him? The feeling, obviously, Joby was there. Joby's a big fan of him. What was that kind of atmosphere like after you'd spoken to him and then saw the result come in?
It was really good. He's like that. He's very thoughtful, quite intense, isn't he? I'm sure you found that already. We mentioned to him what we'd kind of alluded to last week about having a week on the training ground, and when you come in as a manager at this stage of the season, it's just game right in front of your face, move on, next game, and then to have 4 or 5 days is a real luxury. So you could tell that he really enjoyed it. He's super hands-on, isn't he? So he's had a chance to really see in a training scenario what's available, what he can work with. And then you look at the way that City went about it. I mean, Burstow's goal's superb. We've chatted about Mason so many times, haven't we, about what he's capable of, what he should be producing. Hopefully, maybe there's a bit of a new dawn with him, with the boss. I think, did Joao's goal have a little nick on the way through, if I'm being a little bit
minute.
because I think he shaped up for the opposite corner that goes in down there. But and then resilience, because we've seen in recent weeks, well, not recent weeks, in the recent months, given obviously the change, Swansea getting themselves back into it. Great header. Whether you question, I don't know. Obviously, we're very City based with this, of course, but that's a header like that is such a glorious thing to see in football. We can pick it apart from a defensive point of view, but wonderful ball in, wonderfully attacked header, and just as we saw with the Watford game, where the question marks about seeing it to the end, City being able to do that. I'm intrigued to know what the atmosphere was like, because that's another thing that we'd kind of half mentioned with regards to it being quite low key, because obviously, as Kathryn said, I mean, if you've not watched a win there for God knows how long, then you are going to be a little bit miffed and a bit perturbed going into it. But I thought it was superb. You can take Luke's take on the game on the chin. I think he was obviously not happy with his team. It's quite easy to dismiss Hull City if you want to play a certain way of football. I love the way his team plays, and sometimes it doesn't come off. You've got to pat City on the back for getting the win, because they're absolutely fighting for the championship lives, aren't they? So, yeah, going back to that, Kathryn, what was the atmosphere like?
I thought it was quite good, actually. I thought it was better than the Watford game, probably because there was more people there. It went a little bit flat when Swansea equalised, because obviously equalised just before half-time. The ground sort of went silent for a couple of seconds. And there was times when frustration crept in a little bit, but I think for the most part, the fans were kind of, behind the team and probably did make a difference in the end to kind of helping them try and hold on to that win in the final 10 minutes. So I thought for the most part it was a decent atmosphere. I mean, like a world away from when I think back to that Sheffield Wednesday game where it was just completely toxic. It did feel a little bit more like people were starting to think that maybe we can, things might turn around a little bit now.
Burnsy, it's difficult, isn't it, for the fans? Because we've spoke about this throughout 2024. The home form's been garbage. 3 wins in 23 in all competitions. It's difficult. They're turning up in their numbers every week. They're seeing at times fairly average football. They're not seeing many wins. A lot of defeats and even more bore draws. You can forgive them for being a bit like, oh. And I guess when Swans and the same on Saturday, it was a fairly mundane first 15 minutes or so, but then they really took control. Obviously, Regan missed that sitter, and we'll come on to that in a bit. Puerta, who, as you rightly say, was brilliant. Fantastic improvisation to create the chance for himself. Hit the the post. How many times do we see it cannon back off the goalkeeper and go in the net? It went over the crossbar, and you're thinking, here we go again. They then score, and then for the third game in a row, within 10 minutes, they've conceded again. And so you could see why the fans were a bit like, it punctured the atmosphere. But second half, they were the dominant force. They were pressing really high. They were winning the ball back really high. And the fans were right behind them, weren't they? And when they needed them in 4 minutes of added time, and the fans could, for the first time in weeks, sense that victory coming, the fans were really behind them, weren't they?
Yeah, as they should be. I mean, I'm going to disagree with Kathryn. I actually, for the large part, I thought the atmosphere was better against Watford. Trust me, Kathryn, I'm not in an argumentative mood, but that Swansea goal sort of killed it. And you could see the belief, I think, when the Swansea goal went in, you could see the belief for a period of time and into the second half drain out of the fans. And also, to my mind, it took a while for the players to get over that Swansea goal. As I said earlier, I think I tweeted at one point in the second half, City need to do more here. And they did eventually. And then the atmosphere picked up and everything like that. But it was good. Towards the end, I just thought there was a flat period where everybody's thinking, oh, bugger, here we go again after that goal. And going back to that goal, it was a very good header. But somebody told me, somebody called Dar tweeted me before the game on Saturday saying City have conceded more headed goals than any other team in the Championship.
Was it 7?
And
I think it's 8 now.
I don't know, but there was another one. Is that stat true? Because I checked with somebody and they said it was.
Yeah,
which
I think that's right,
might colour my thinking on what they need to do in the January transfer window. But we'll come to that.
Prutts, from a side, I asked Ruben about this after the game from a psychological point of view. And I know it's only Christmas. I know they've only played 22 games, and there's an awful lot of football to be played between now and season end. But from a psychological point of view, getting up, they've been in and around the bottom three. They've been bottom of the table for a couple of weeks. They've been hammered. A lot of criticisms come their way. They've lost their manager. They've not won in eons. Psychologically, from a dressing room point of view, what can that do for their momentum and their confidence going not just to Preston and Blackburn on Boxing Day and Sunday, but going forward, particularly when you think the next 2 home games to kick off New Year is a Borough on New Year's Day, and then of course Leeds United. What can that do for them?
It's huge. I mean, and I think we'd mentioned it about the statistics that are thrown around about clubs that are bottom at Christmas. Some obviously it can be a little bit of a misnomer really because of how close these teams can be. But I think it's massive. It's massive. I've spent time in teams that have been farting around at the wrong end of the table, and it can seem endless, that wait to try and get above the bit of metaphorical kind of breathing space. But it's big for them. Question marks, of course, on the bottom three and how close that all is still. And being just a point outside has got to keep them so unbelievably honest. But it also validates potentially a week of work that Ruben's done. Yeah. And as much as the players have got to impress the new boss, the new boss has got to come in and galvanise and impress is not the right. You galvanise the right. Like, lads, I know it's been crap. It's been really crap. And everyone knows it's been crap because you're bottom of the league. This is what we're going to try and do. This is how we're going to go about trying to do that. And it's a massive step in the right direction. No time to pump the brakes and relax too much. Obviously, they've got Christmas coming up, which, given the fact they're only human beings as well, they need to enjoy to the right degree. But it goes again on Boxing Day. And as you say, it's pretty relentless after that with big games coming up. And then I said about having the quality to be able to pull away and be safe. Beating those teams like a Swansea doesn't validate that because they've got such a long way to go, but does show that with the right level of consistency and the right level of belief that they can do it. And go back to your point, Burnsy and Kathryn, about what the ground has been, and yours, Baz. They've got every right. We've said so many times it costs a fortune to watch football. And if it's not very good, you can sit there and not make much noise because 90 minutes can drag. Let's be honest, if you're watching stuff that's not resolutely kind of inspiring. And it doesn't have to be Brazil in the 70s, does it? It just has to be a bunch of people running around looking at it like they actually care about what's going on. And I think hopefully that was just a phase for a certain portion of City players, because I think that's not me casting aspersions on anyone's professionalism, but you could tell by the end of Tim Bolter being there that there was a huge disconnect, hence the fact obviously he's moved on. They've got to get on board with Ruben, and if not, they've got to ship out in January.
And Kathryn, that point that Prutts makes there about getting on board with Ruben, even in the Watford game, the fans were chanting in support of Ruben, weren't they? And at the end of the game, the felt just... I'm conscious not to just get too excited because the team are suddenly clapping the fans and the manager's, clapping the fans. But from the Watford game...
It happens, though. So sorry to point. Did I see... the new Wolves boss yesterday? This was half an eye on a reactionary bit on, I can't remember whatever I was watching last night, but getting clapped by the Wolves fans and cheered and all that. And it's like, the king is dead. Gary, go on, bugger off. You've been terrible, even though you saved us and did this and that. We hate you. God, rubbish. New fella comes in, gets oh, he's brilliant. He's done one game. Well, part of one game. I totally get it. But that's what it is. I totally get it. I totally get it, because these people that make the game what it is, they're there week in, week out. Good, bad, indifferent. Bottom of the league, top of the league, promotion, relegation out there. So, sorry, Kathryn.
Yeah, and Kathryn, that's the thing, though, isn't it? That already we're seeing that the fact that the fans are behind the manager, and the manager. I mean, the scenes at the end of the game on Saturday were lovely. I know it was a collective 20,000 people relief of thank Christ we finally won a game, and it's before Christmas and all that sort of stuff. But you could see what it meant to the players and the manager, and he's only been here 2 weeks, and already the fans have seemed to have taken to him.
Yeah, and I think it's important to think of the players as well. When the final whistle went, I mean, Ryan Giles, who I think's maybe had a bit of criticism from performances and maybe kind of how much he wants to be here, on Saturday when that final whistle went, he looked absolutely, over the moon. He was kind of pumping his fist at the crowd, and I thought, it looks like a completely different player to the one even from 2 weeks ago when Selles first came in, and the manager. It was a strong reaction on the touchline when the final whistle went, probably one of relief that we all had. But I didn't think he went kind of overboard in his celebrations when he kind of, he walked around, he sort of applauded the fans. He didn't come over and give it kind of the free fist bumps like some managers do. He's only won, it's one game. He probably thinks that as well, let's not kind of get carried away. Let's just kind of, enjoy it. But as some managers always kind of say, let's not get carried away. There's more games to come quickly. So I think that was quite a good way of doing it. But you can see how much it meant to the players, and I think you can tell now already that there's kind of a growing connection between the team and the manager, and potentially one that is already stronger than the one that they had with Tim Walter, which was obviously quite fractured by the time he left.
The good thing with Ruben is, given, and obviously Reading, extenuating circumstances to the extreme, he's got very recent experience and ability with pulling people together, hasn't he? Because that's what he's done. There's no fractious ownership issues at City as yet, but there has been a disconnect. So he's quite obviously, you've got to tactically sort the team out. And again, very much a work in progress. We're not getting carried away. But secondly, understand the kind of temperature of the room, being the stadium and the away fans, and kind of seeing what can pull them together. And you're all absolutely right. Football and management can be so transient and fleeting that little moments like a Saturday, you've got to enjoy it. I know it's business. I know it's very, very serious for him and all that, but those little moments, because they're the things that really get you in here. So you do bounce into training today, bit of a spring in your step. Oh, you know what I mean? Got that monkey off our back, got the win going. Need to stick together, look after it. And it's great because football at Christmas, from a playing point of view, it's a great little cocoon, because you're just, if you're playing, it's great. If you're not, it's not so great. But if you're playing, it's just about the next game, and it's recovery and the next game. And then it's dipping out into family life and coming back into football and being together and sharing this really unique position. Because yes, people work over Christmas and everyone works in different environments over Christmas, but being on the road and staying away and sharing those experiences can really bring a team together. And if it had been the same with Tim Walter, you get the feeling it could have been a bit more strained and a bit kind of the boss and the management here and the players there. I'm not saying Ruben's going to be high-fiving and larking around with everyone, but he'll have a sense of togetherness that'll bring them together, I think.
Funny you mention that, because you know what it's like, all of you really. You speak to players and you get managers, and they're so schooled into saying, "Oh, it's about the next game. It's about the next game." And you're like, "Look, come on, lads. Let's have a conversation. Let's think beyond that." So I asked Ruben something on Saturday, and he surprised me actually, because he sort of said, because I was like, "Well, will there be time to enjoy this victory, or are you going to be like, no, it's done now. Let's focus on Boxing Day?" And he was like, "No, actually, it's been a long time. These moments are special. We're gonna enjoy tonight, and we're going to enjoy tomorrow, and we're going to sort of revel in the fact that we've put a performance on, we've played well, and we've won a game. And then we've got a bit of time between now and Boxing Day, and we'll prepare for Boxing Day." I mean, he's given the players Christmas Day off. They're obviously training before that, and they'll be meeting up later on Christmas night, ready to travel to Preston for the game on Boxing Day. But the important thing is they are, going to be spending the majority of Christmas Day wherever they want to spend it, and that's important, because that probably wouldn't have happened under the previous manager. That they would have almost certainly have been in on Christmas Day. And again, at risk of getting hammered from people that think there's a narrative here, the training ground. This is genuine. I'm not just saying it because it fits my feeling or anything, because it doesn't. The feeling around the training ground is completely different now. There is people are, it's just happier. And I'm not saying Tim Walter ran it like, what insert phrase there, but it was a very, very strict environment. It wasn't a happy working environment for the players, the staff, and also the non-playing staff. And I think that has changed. I think there is a genuine feeling that players are happy to come to work and happy to be there. And as Kathryn, you rightly said there, Gilo was one example, and we can debate his performance, isn't? you know, for a player that the club have paid £4 million for, I don't think they've been anywhere near that level. And I would imagine Ryan would probably be the first to admit that, because he was when we spoke to him after the Norwich game. But he was better on Saturday, and he's starting to grow into it. And his reaction at the end, and even Mason Burstow, another one. I don't think that goal happens a month ago.
It'll change. It'll change very quickly, and you've all spoken to enough footballers and know exactly what they're like. They're fundamentally decent human beings, but they're horrendously selfish people. We all know that, and you've got to be to a certain degree to get into what they do as a profession. There'll be some that were sad to see Tim go, and this is the very nature of the beast. There'll be some that were like almost kind of waving him off. Yeah, cheers, mate. Bugger off. Thank you very much for your work. So glad to see the back here. That's just what it's like, and it's you hear about different dynamics and different managers and players. That I'm not saying there was a mutiny or anything like that at all, but there will be a bit of a cloud that's lifted. And we've said, and again, whoever's listening to this, we're not sandbagging a manager, because he's got his methods have worked before. So the next club it might work again. There's always that kind of little one that sticks in a manager's CV where things didn't quite work out. We've said, and I don't think we've let the players off the hook at all. We've looked at what they've done. They've been way below what anyone would expect. And the minute it started creeping into kind of application territory, that is proper alarm bells time. That's when it becomes unprofessional. But I think the mentality is not as strong as it should be. But if it does turn a corner and it becomes a little bit more of a friendly place, and I don't say that too condescendingly, and it gets better performances from players that we know can do better, then for the good of Hull City, it's moving in the right direction. We part that little bit of cynicism because we know how fickle players' attitudes at times can be. And then hopefully you just revel in the fact that City start gradually moving up the table.
Burnsy, have you got some comments for us?
Yeah. I'm conscious Kathryn's not said anything in ages. I've just written down, listening to Prutts there, can you buy mentality in January? We'll talk about the transfer window in a bit. Kathryn, do you want to say what you were going to say? Baz asked you a question there. Prutts is all over it today because he's eager. He's an eager beaver today. Do you want to say what you're going to say, and I'll get to some of the comments that are coming into the 1904 club?
I can't remember what the question was now. What was the question?
Don't repeat it. It doesn't matter. Let me read some comments. That went well. Jason Statham. No, not that one. That's the first game I've seen this season where the players look to fight for everything. Selles has installed a belief in this side that wasn't there. He did more on the touchline than Walter did all season. It was good to see. Tom Marshall said Pedro was very good, even though his legs have gone. He's very clever at linking play up. I wonder if it's possible to have Burstow play off him. We'll probably talk about whether Burstow's done enough to start in the next side. Ben Kennedy says best performance in months, but still shouldn't get too carried away. I think that's sensible, Ben. If the next game is as promising, then a few good signings in January, then I feel we can be looking at mid-table and then a promotion fight next year. Well, Ben has got carried away there, but good on you, Ben. Nigel says, fantastic win and should have been more with Slater and Puerta's chances. Think we have to get Burstow into the team somehow. He was brilliant when he came on. We've scored the first goal in the last 3 matches also now. Just need to work on getting those clean sheets. Kathryn, you want to pick anything out of that or anything you want to say?
Yeah, it's interesting with Burstow, isn't it? Because I think if he does come into the team, he probably comes in for Kamara, doesn't he? Just based on form at the minute, because I don't think you can drop Brian Longman based on the performance he put in on Saturday. He was kind of all over the pitch, but I'm a little bit worried about Kamara. Actually, I think he's shown some signs of promise. He showed some signs against Coventry. I think he was involved for the goal. I think he was involved for the goal against Watford as well. Saturday didn't quite seem right. But things maybe just weren't clicking for him, because I don't think he probably enjoyed it much under Tim Walter either. I know he kind of got dug out by him a couple of times, and you'd kind of think a new manager coming in would be quite good for somebody like him. And I do think sometimes the fans can get on his back a little bit too early into games, and I don't think that always helps. And he looks maybe like a player that needs a little bit of confidence, and maybe he needs a break at the team. Maybe he needs a couple of games, just to kind of take himself out for it. I know sometimes that can maybe make it worse, but I actually think maybe give him a little bit of break. He has probably played quite a lot of football. I think Mason Burstow does have to come into the team, and it probably is Kamara he comes in for. And maybe dropping to the bench might do him the world of good. It might kind of push him a little bit to get the best out of himself, because I do think there's a player in there. I just don't think we've quite seen the best of him yet, and I think it'd be a kind of a shame if that didn't work out, because I think he's a much better player than somebody like Chris Bedia, who I just don't think he's going to be a success for us. Unfortunately, I just don't think he's going to get you more 10 goals a season that you need from a centre forward.
We'll come to January and whether they move him out or try and move him out in a minute. Just Andy Cowling on the subject of Kamara says, Louis Coyle proved his doubters wrong. I'd agree with that. He started the game with a take no prisoners attitude, Coyle, didn't he? It was like, how dare anybody question my place in the team? I'll show you lot. And he started brilliantly. Louis proved his doubters wrong, but right decision to bring Drame on for him as he faded. Giles is finally Giles. Hughes is a wall. Puerta sign him up. Burstow must start over Kamara. Pedro undroppable at the Mo while he gets a goal a game. And Chris says, much better. Where did that Puerta performance come from? Upper body strength, so important in the Championship. Pedro, Simmons and Longman's been good examples in additions to the centre-backs. Best game from Giles too. Baz, Prutts, we're going to talk January. We've only got Prutts for about 10 minutes. We're going to talk January.
I wanted to find out what Prutts was having for Christmas lunch and what his favourite Christmas film was. Given that if you're not watching on YouTube, he has come dressed as the elf with his own face.
Looks ridiculous, doesn't it?
He's now posing.
So I got this from work, and just kind of casually. Oh, when we're starting the show on Saturday, you're just going to wear that? Am I?
On his own?
Yeah. No, I did. I had it I put a belt around it and pulled it down a bit.
Wow, is that the uncut version that we don't see on telly?
Your face, ridiculous. Yes, it is. Yeah.
So Prutts, do you get to keep the Christmas jumper? Do you get to keep all the Armani and everything like that, and all the Primani stuff that they give you and everything like that? Do you get to keep that?
It's Primani and it's footwear from Windsor's. I used to enjoy a good troll through Windsor's shelves, like trying to find that new pair of kickers that was hidden at the back. We get. I mean, they have said make sure you bring it back on Boxing Day. I mean, this is ridiculous, isn't it? Ridiculous. But no, it's say again.
What are they going to do with it on Boxing Day?
Well, they'll make me wear it. They'll make me wear it. How bad does that sound? Kathryn, they're going to make me wear it.
And make you do some daft Home Alone thing again.
Can you help me? Yeah.
You lost it. I think just say you lost it. Couldn't find it.
Exactly. Yeah, it burst into flames because it feels like it could do it at any moment. This is serious sports journalism we're trying to discuss here, and this is what we do. It'll be good though. We've got 3 games back to back on Boxing Day, which I've always enjoyed doing. So it'll be. Are we all working Boxing Day? I presume so. Kathryn's checking
We like to Preston away. We've obviously annoyed somebody over the last couple of years to be given Deepdale on Boxing Day, and then Ewood Park a couple of days later. They couldn't have given us like a fairly local game or a home game would have been nice. But no,
they are intriguing games. I saw Paul Heckingbottom on Friday because Preston were down in the same hotel that we were in. Obviously, they were at QPR, where our studios are at Brentford, so not far at all. And it was positive about what he'd seen from his side. I mean, Blackburn again is another after such a wonderful winning run. They'll be looking to react to that, and it just kind of dovetails into what we're saying, isn't it? And Kathryn's point about maybe changing the team and just working the personalities. That's the thing that I'll find fascinating, Kathryn, how Ruben deals with that, because as we've seen, there is a bit of a fragility to City at the moment, isn't there? And it's the squad that's got to play its part over the course of Christmas because of how quickly the games are coming and how intact, points-wise, City find themselves in January.
Yeah, speaking of kind of that fragility, I'm a bit. One of the players I think's not quite been themselves this season is Alfie Jones. I think he's just not quite been the same since losing Jacob Greaves alongside him. And I know his centre back partner's changed a few times, which probably doesn't help him and not had that consistency. He was with McLaughlin to start with, and obviously then Charlie Hughes came in, but it just doesn't quite look as confident. Doesn't quite look like the player he was, last season and a few seasons ago. And I don't think he was particularly at fault for the goal on Saturday, but there was just a few times where I just thought an Alfie of a season ago would have looked a bit more assured or a bit calmer on the ball. And now he's maybe slipping into bad habits or doing things he probably wouldn't have done before. And I think he's another player that Ruben needs to probably kind of give a little bit of confidence to, as well as a few other players. But I know Prutts has been mentioned. I thought he was really good when he first came into the team, then dipped kind of like everybody else did, probably got dragged into that kind of misery sort of run that we were in, and he was much better on Saturday. And again, I think he's a brilliant player. I think there's actually quite a lot of poor teams in the Championship. I didn't think much of Blackburn when they beat us. I think they had one shot on target. The goal that they scored was via us. So I think actually it doesn't take long for you get a couple of wins on the board. Suddenly the confidence is high. And Swansea were one of those poor teams on Saturday. I think there's quite a few of them going around.
There's a lot of them, Kathryn. It's we've said it before. It's a poor division in terms of quality, but in terms of competitiveness, it's as competitive as ever. Just on the point then of Alfie Jones and the stat earlier that they've conceded the most headers in the division. Is there a centre half Baz on the shopping list for January?
Of the players they're looking at, I've not been made aware of a centre half. For me, I think, and I completely agree with KB about Alfie. I think he's a top defender at this level, and we saw it alongside Jacob Greaves. I know there's a consensus amongst some supporters that Greavesy made him look better. I think that's extremely harsh. I think Jones himself has been a very good defender since he came in from Southampton. I think he really struggled with what he was being asked to do under Tim Walter. I think the lines were being blurred a lot. So I expect that there's a few of them, but I expect Jonesy to be one of the players now under Ruben that is just asked to defend. Yeah, take the ball off the goalkeeper and pass it around because he's very good at that. He's Alfie. He's very good on the ball. He's that modern centre back. But I think he will now flourish under the new manager because he's being asked to defend. He's not being asked to become a right winger or a centre forward or doing cartwheels on the edge of his 6-yard box before chipping the ball 10 yards and running after it. I think he can now just focus on defending and doing the simple things. And I think alongside probably Charlie Hughes, obviously, it was Macca and then it was Charlie and then it was Macca again and now it's Charlie again. And then obviously Alfie himself, after 44 games in a row, has missed a couple with injury, and that was his first start on Saturday. So I did think he looked a bit rusty at times. But I do think that Burnsy, I think Alfie is a player that will start to hopefully slip back into the Alfie that we saw last year and be a really good partner for probably Charlie Hughes. But I don't get the feeling that they're going to look for a centre-back when they've got McLaughlin as the third kind of... It's kind of harsh on McLaughlin, but he is the third centre-half, as he was almost last season as well.
I think with that, though, it goes back to what Ruben's kind of remit is. And I don't know anything from a financial point of view that City, how they find themselves in January. But if you're conceding headers, obviously it's very, very straightforward. Work on the heading ability of the players or the timing of the heading ability. The other side of it is stop crosses coming in. We spoke about what was it, the game a couple of
at Coventry, Giles and Coyle didn't stop the cross, and
with Ephraim Mason-Clark saying he's very good, he'll get the ball into the box, get somewhere near him. Coyle was on his own. So and that's not me letting Louis off the hook because he held his hands up and said, look, he didn't have one of his better games. And then, like you say, came out with a bit between his teeth, didn't he, as you're saying, Burnsy? Which is absolutely the right reaction you want from not just a good experienced player, but your captain as well. But it's like I said, stopping things at source. And if you are prone to conceding from crosses into the box, work double hard to stop crosses into the box, get them funneled down to the middle. And if the middle of the pitch isn't strong, push them out wide. So he's got to very quickly find out where the strength and the weaknesses of City, work on the weaknesses, but really accentuate the strengths to make sure that confidence that we talk about and that Kathryn mentioned about the players as a collective. Great term, going through that collective misery, because believe me, I've been there. You're looking around, you're rubbish. Oh, you're rubbish. Actually, I'm rubbish as well now. This is terrible. We're all rubbish. I don't know what we're doing now. It can really, just as confidence can grow very quickly, that lack of confidence can really seep into a team and drag them down, which it has done. And hopefully it's a corner turned. Sorry, Burnsy.
So I'm conscious of the time, and I know you've got other commitments. But I wanted to touch on something you mentioned earlier about mentality. Regardless of position, do they need to buy mentality in January?
Well, I think we mentioned experience, didn't we, last time out, about where you could potentially look for, and obviously, as ever, a goal scorer. That's a wonderful thing to get. But you can. The only thing with that is if you've got someone with that really strong mentality and fortitude as a player, more often than not, they're playing somewhere regularly. So therefore, they're not going to be sat on the backside waiting for January to come around to go on loan, are they? But I think you can. It's about the cliche of getting good pros in will never change, because good eggs in an average dressing room can elevate it, and that's what City as a collective under Liam in particular weren't they? They were a good set of players, a confident set of players, led by a manager who really kind of inspired them, which massively have come away from for the first half of this season. But under Ruben, have got a chance to do that, and I do believe you can recruit mentality, because first and foremost, you buy or loan or kind of pull in the good pros and the good people. Yes, they've got to be able to be good players and fit into the system, whatever the system Ruben is and what he wants to do with it. But you absolutely can recruit good mentality, which can lift a club, lift a team, lift a fan base.
Burnsy, when you think of mentality, if you look at what Ipswich did last season, they scoured the market and they plucked Lewis Travis from Blackburn, and they got him on loan for the final few weeks of the season. Lewis Travis is now obviously skipper at Blackburn, hugely influential player for John Eustace, has come back into the fold, and the thought of him being farmed out on loan is unthinkable. So those players are out there, and it's up to Jared Dublin and the scouting network at City to go and find, if that's what they think they need, to go and find a player of that type of quality, because there will be that sort of player sat somewhere not playing as regularly as he would have liked, because that's just how football works. Players are flavour of the month one week and then they're bombed off and don't play again for a while. And so that's what City have got to go and find and try and do at some point.
Just on the transfer window, you touched that you said you don't think there's a centre half on the shopping list. You've done a story today for the Hull Daily Mail, Baz, in terms of what they're looking at. What can you tell us?
Prutts has got. Have you got to go, Prutts?
I have, yes. I was just going to walk off. Like that discussion at a dinner party that you just zone out of and kind of walk off. Not that I go to dinner parties.
We'll have a Merry Christmas.
It's not the 70s.
Buckaroo.
Yeah. Oh. You're having black
anyway,
gatto and
yes,
a
being
cocktail for Christmas dinner.
Crunch on the top. God, we're old. I don't include you in that, Kathryn. I'm just saying, God, we're old, man. It's
Prutts is off now to be an elf at your local shopping centre. He'll be
just collecting trolleys.
Stephen's wearing his just nothing but his elf jumper after 8 o'clock though.
Which in St Stephen's doesn't look completely out of place. I love St Stephen's. I'm only joking.
Merry Christmas.
Yes,
Merry
it's been a
Christmas,
pleasure,
Prutts.
you gang. Thanks so much for having me on. Keep up the good work. It's good that Fletch is somewhere in the ether. I think we need to club together to get him a new fuel injector. Did he say?
Yes, Fletch isn't here today. He's on his way into the office to do the podcast. His sleigh broke down, so he needs some Christmas spirit to re-inject it. So we're trying to find him some here.
Do you think on Santa's list right round the world, there's one from a James Fletcher of Hull? He's the only one in the world that's asked Santa for a fuel injector.
on a 1992 Vauxhall Corsa.
Yeah, probably been loaded onto the back of Santa's sleigh by Doris, one of his helpers.
Oh, God. Anyway, gang, I'll let you crack on. It's been a pleasure as ever. Kathryn, Burnsy, Baz, wonderful stuff. Have a very Merry Christmas, everyone.
Love you, bye. Merry Christmas, darling.
Love you, bye.
Oh, he's gone. We could get professional again.
So back to the question. Back to the question. You did a story today. What's the transfer targets?
Yeah, they want the number. They want a number 6. That much is obvious. Adrian has spoke publicly about that. They want 2 wingers, and they, like everybody else in the land, they want a striker at least. So 4 players at least, with the potential for 1 or 2 more. I do worry that there might be the odd panic signing, and I think if they being out the bottom 3 might potentially help that. If they were bottom of the table going into January, we might see one or two farmed in from abroad that maybe are going to bloat the squad and not actually add anything apart from taking money on the wage bill. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen. So they need to be thought out. They need to be sensible and not get caught up in the January chaos. But, two wingers, obvious, I think, given the fact that Miller and Balumi aren't around, and that's a real shame because I put them in this side, and I think that transforms them, particularly under Ruben. But alas, that isn't the case. So we move on. But two wingers. I think they'd like another creative player as well. If there's one going, if they can find, we know that Casey Palmer's now going to be sidelined for at least the next month, depending on how quickly he recovers from the ankle problem he picked up at Coventry last weekend. So, I think they'll look to the loan market. That is a sensible way of operating. Try and get a young player in from a Premier League team, maybe a young player that's got something to prove, that wants to come in and make an impact. They don't need journeymen. They don't need 35-year-old journeymen that are coming here for a big payday and don't really care about what happens to Hull City. We need to avoid that. Getting one or two maybe younger players, but younger players that can come in and add something. We've obviously seen Finn Burns come in from Man City, for whatever reason, has added nothing. Bless him. He's just not played. So we've seen nothing of him. It's been a wasted loan in that respect. They need young players that if they're going to come in from the Premier League, and we know they're looking, we know that the Premier League is, and they've got relationships with Aston Villa, they've got relationships with Liverpool. They'd love Tyler Morton back, Burnsy. They really would love Tyler Morton back, but I think that unfortunately, because of their position in the table, that probably makes that one difficult. I know Sheffield United have been sniffing around, and if he is to go on loan into the Championship, it's probably going to be the top end or abroad. We know that Leverkusen and Leipzig were keen on him in the summer on a permanent deal, so that is one they would like to do. But I think that's probably a bit over the top, but or out of reach, I should say. But yeah, look, I'd be looking at Aston Villa, I'd be looking at Man City, I'd be looking at the clubs they've worked with before, Arsenal, at Liverpool. They've got, and even further down, there's some very, very good players that could come into a Championship team, have an instant impact that perhaps haven't been playing as much as they would like.
Just listening to Baz there on the two wingers, we discussed Kamara earlier. What does that say to Kamara and indeed to Longman?
Yeah, and I suppose it's one of those things, isn't it? If you want it to get a good reaction from them, you want it to be kind of like, right, okay, you don't need to go and sign a winger because I'm going to show you what I can do. Unfortunately, we've not seen the goals and enough assists from players like Kamara. I think Longman's obviously been out for quite a while, and to be fair, since he's come back, he's a very hard worker, and what he might lack in maybe a bit of skill or kind of, sort of that side of things, he makes up for it with his tenacity and his hard work, and he can sometimes get a goal out of just pure kind of dedication and determination. Whereas Kamara is a little bit more like, he's more likely to produce a moment of skill or like a burst of pace, but we've just not seen it enough from him. And whether we need two wingers or one, I don't know. But a striker,
I think personally, I'd rather see one winger and two strikers.
Yeah,
personally.
Strikers are harder to find, aren't they? I think. I mean, with Bedia, as I said earlier, I just don't see that working out for us anymore. And I think Pedro is again another player that works quite hard. He's not the best centre forward in the league. He sometimes goes down a little bit too easily, looking for free kicks, I feel. But again, like, he always puts himself about, which is where I think Bedia maybe lets himself down. I think with Pedro, even though he was, you could see he was a bit tired towards the end on Saturday, but he was still trying to hold the ball up and kind of occupy the defence in ways that I wasn't convinced Bedia would maybe do when he came on. But I think it's the depth that we're missing at the minute, obviously because of the injuries. But I looked at the bench on Saturday, and after Burstow came on, I was kind of thinking, well, Malam's never really done anything to make me think he's going to come on and change a game. Omer's kind of not really worked out either. He had a good start when he first came last season. This season has really kind of struggled. I don't know what position is his best position. He sort of ends up sort of playing, in kind of on the wing, sometimes central. Has never really done enough. And then obviously Bedia was there, and then we had kind of a mixture of defenders and midfielders, and I just think that's what we were missing. Kind of, there's not enough depth in the team. They need another forward. I would say they need probably one more winger, maybe, as you say, a midfielder and a centre half. Because I was going to ask about Burns. I mean, is he going to stay or go back to Man City? Because it's just been, as you say, a bit of a waste.
Well, this is the thing, and the fact they're looking for a number 6, and obviously he was brought in as a centre half. We know he can play in that 6 role, and he's not even being considered. Obviously Zambrano, we know is forget Zambrano for the next. Although the club have been lumbered with his salary for the rest of the season, so they've got a player on the wage bill that they kind play. But yeah, I mean, if you're Finn Burns as well, you must be looking at it thinking, well, I'm not playing. I've played 40 odd minutes of Championship football this season. I'm not even under consideration for that in that team. He's been on the bench. He's been off the bench. Even under Ruben's had 3 games and he's not featured. So that suggests that he still isn't going to be a regular feature. So City need, and we've talked about this before. City haven't got much wriggle room. That their squad is bloated. They've got to They're going to have to deregister 3 players just so they can bring 3 players in. That's Miller, Bellumi, and Zambrano. They've got to deregister them just to bring players in. Then you're looking at other loan spots. Well, Batte, I agree with you, Kathryn. I'm not having him. I think Pedro is yes, his legs have gone, but he's really smart. He's got a brain. You can see he's still got. He's even with his goal on Saturday, it was a snapshot, and he scored. He got the bit. He bought a ticket, and he got the bit of luck with the raffle. So, I would flog. I'd get rid of Malem. I don't think he offers anything to the party. I'd probably cancel Batte as. It's not that easy to cancel loans, but I'd look at trying to end that if that's possible. I'd probably end Finn Burns' loan. Suddenly you've created 6 spots in your squad, and you've got a bit of wriggle room there and a bit of finance. Obviously, cancelling loans is fraught with challenges because of financial penalties and wages. So it's not just a case of go, well, he's been rubbish, so we'll sack it off and we'll send him back. That cancelling loans is a difficult process, particularly if you're the club that want to get rid of the player. Because the selling club have loaned him out for a reason, generally. So yes, Burnsy, go on. You want to say something?
No. I was listening. I totally agree. If somebody's paying if City are paying loan fees, if you're the parent club, you're thinking, well, we've got that money coming in. Unless we're going to get it from somewhere else and we can find another club for him, then we're not going to. It's not It's not a returns policy. You haven't got 14 days or 3 months or whatever. I wanted to talk about a player that Kathryn mentioned there, because Tom Lehman sent the 1904 club a tweet, and somebody else sent one as well, and I'll try and name check them before the end of the show. But Tom Lehman to the 1904 club says, could Abdush Omar possibly be on the way out? ? Doesn't seem fancied by Selles so far. In fact, he's had 5 minutes, I think, in his first game as a sub. Been on the bench last 2 games, not featured. Big wages and looks too weak for the Championship for me. Are they looking to move Abdush Omar around?
I was told no fairly recently. There was some links to him going back to Turkey, but I was told unequivocally that wasn't the case, and that he's here, and they're going to try and find a way. I think it's a funny one, isn't it? Because we all got quite excited this time, last January when he arrived, and we thought, well, he's obviously a really good player. He's got technical ability, and because City have got Carvalho, it's almost a perfect situation, because Abdush can come in January, he can settle in. He's got plenty of time. There's no pressure on him really, because Fabio is going to be the player that plays in that position, and Liam can drip feed Abdush in and get. He can basically use January to the summer to get up to speed with English football, help him settle in personally and away from the pitch, and then kick on this season. And we just haven't seen it. Wherever, admittedly, he was played off the flank, which is I think makes him totally ineffective. He needs to be played in a more central attacking area where we can actually impact in the final third. We've not seen it. I still think there's a player in there. I do, and I believe that he really wants to make it work. But obviously, if he's not going to be given a minute,
not fancy him. Does the manager not fancy him, Bess? Because he's not playing him.
Yeah,
but he's not really giving Batte much of a game.
No, but in fairness to Ruben, he's had 3 games. He's had barely any time on the training pitch, and he's kind of had to make decisions on the hoof, if you like, and go with kind of what he knows. And in an attacking sense, he's stuck with with Abu. I think that might change on Boxing Day because of Mason's. I think Mason is getting towards that stage where he's going to have to start a game at some point. As Kathryn rightly said, Ryan, the lack of end product with Ryan is a concern. But what you get a player that works his what's off. He never stops running, and he was really unlucky. It didn't really get much mention at the time, but his effort that hit the post on Saturday was going in, but it was a really faint glove from the goalkeeper. Brilliant save in the end. But we've said before on this programme that Ryan's stats over the last couple of years in the Championship, he generally is never injured. I know he got his shoulder injured, that was really lucky, but he's always available. He plays a lot of games, but his assists and goals are really low, and that's something that he's got to improve. And he may well see players coming in January and think, well, actually, I'm gonna move on. So he wouldn't be a player that he wants to play every week. He's only got a few months left on his contract. Is that something that there's a decision to make there with Ryan? Is he a long-term future at Hull City? If he is, well, he needs a new contract. If he's not, do they look at trying to get something in for him in January, knowing he's out of contract in the summer? So that is, so they're going to have to ship players out. I don't think it's going to be, a wholesale change again because it's January. I think that'll come in the summer again. I think Ruben would like to make subtle changes, but it is as we keep saying, it's an incredibly difficult window to do business in, and it's expensive. And City will have to pay if they want the striker, whether it's one or, as you say, Burnsy, two. That's really hard. Where are they coming from, and how are they going to get them? Everybody in the land wants a striker, and City are kind of lower. They crept low. They weren't particularly high on the food chain anyway, and this season has seen them fall lower down the food chain. So they're going to have to be really clever in how they go about their business.
Kathryn?
Yeah, I think as I was saying earlier with Omar, I mean, I don't know if it's as simple as like he was obviously very close to Ozan Tufan, and him leaving I don't think helps. I'm not saying that's the reason he's not been quite as good this season, but I think that he helped him feel comfortable. I think the two of them playing together also worked quite well off each other, and maybe he doesn't feel quite as settled. He's not felt quite as settled maybe this season at the club. It's like what we were saying before. I think, again, Malem was probably Tim Walter's man that he's brought in. He probably feels a little bit unsettled now because the guy that's brought him in has left. Again, I've just not seen enough from him to make me think that he can cement a place in the team. So it was interesting actually when I was saying about Bedia earlier on Saturday about him. He was kind of dressed for Siberia. He had a massive coat on and his hood was up and he had a hat, and he wasn't kind of like, I never know how much to read into players' body language when they're warming up as a sub, because sometimes some players can do really like exaggerated warm-ups and then come on and do nothing, and some players can kind of saunter about and then come on and score a goal. But to be kind of Bedia didn't look like a player that necessarily wanted to come on. And one of Ruben Selles' assistants kind of came down the touchline at one point and spoke to him for a little bit, and I thought, he's going to bring him on. But whether he was maybe bringing him, having a conversation to say, we're not going to bring you on right now, but we might if X, Y, Z happens. And in the end, obviously, he didn't come on. And I think if you're a striker, and you could sort of see, as we were saying about Pedro, you could tell he was tired by the end, and he was still working hard and grafting. But if you had a striker on the bench that was kind of, you knew was going to come and run around for you, you probably would have brought him on. And I just think the manager thought, I'm not sure he's going to come on and do me a job and help me see this game out, which isn't good for Bedia either. I imagine he probably wants to. I wouldn't be surprised if he wanted the loan to end as well. But there's too many players, I think, in that team where I think I'm not sure what you bring in, and I don't know how much you actually want to be here as much as we think. How much are you offering to us, and how many of them they can change in January, as you say, is going to be difficult. But they need to free up some spots so they can freshen things up a little bit.
It's going to be a key part of the season. They've got to get it right. I want to read this tweet out to the 1904 club just because I like the phrase at the end of it from Rodney McPhelps, who I don't think we've had a tweet before to the 1904 club. Do you think with 5 or 6 players in the summer and the core of this squad remaining, we could make a push for the playoffs next season? Or am I suffering from over-positivity City derangement syndrome? I only read that out for the last phrase, actually. I like that. We'll use that, Rodney, at a future juncture, perhaps. They've just got to stay in the division this time round. There's more tweets to come, Baz. When do you think that we might see the first player? You were saying in your article today for the Mail you think that there could be one fairly sharpish?
I think so. Yeah, I think they understand the importance of it, but equally, Ruben is very much, I don't want to rush it and get the wrong player in. So you have to counterbalance that by the need to get one or two in quickly to just to freshen it up and lift the dressing room and give them some quality. As Kathryn mentioned earlier, you look at the bench after Mason came off it. There's not a lot in terms of an attacking sense that you could change it. I was told that they had a deal lined up from a loan, a Premier League loan. We'll have to wait and see how that happens. It's January is difficult, isn't it? And club, as we always say, and we keep saying, clubs. City could have a player lined up. They could have an agreement in principle with a Premier League club over a loan, and then suddenly everything could be agreed in principle, and then somebody else comes in and gazumps City with a better offer for the player, for the club, and suddenly we saw it in the summer. We saw it in the summer with Kiefer Moore, that City were in pole position. They got him going to the airport to Manchester to board a flight out to Istanbul to come and join the team at Riva. We saw it with Raksaki. I remember sitting in the hotel lobby with Tan Kesler, having a conversation about Raksaki, and Raksaki had been a long-term target. He sat there, Tan sat there, and said to me, I said, "Are you going to go after Raksaki? Because it looks like he might not have a future at Palace immediately anyway under Oliver Glasner. Is that something that you're going to look to do?" Because we knew that they wanted wingers. This was before they signed Bellumi and Liam Miller. We knew at that point that certainly Liam Miller was a target because they worked on it all summer. And he said, "We are the first choice. If Palace allow Raksaki out, we are the first choice for the player and for the player's agent. And we've been speaking to the player's agent at length, and we've been assured that if Palace let him go, Raksaki will come to Hull City because that's the move he wants. He's gone to Sheffield United." So that's two deals this summer, and there were more that City felt that they were in pole position and they were going to get over the line. And this is another one coming into January. They feel that there's a player there that the Premier League club are going to let out to Hull City. And as it stands now, that is going to happen hopefully, I've been told, in time for the game against Middlesbrough. But things can change. And just because as of the 23rd of December, at whatever time it is, that is the case, by Christmas Eve, that could have changed. It could change by 5 o'clock this afternoon. And so it is a fluid thing. And, we all know how transfers work, some better than others. But that is, so until the player's here and signed, and the contract is actually signed, it could still go belly up and they could miss out on him. So, but yeah, they want a couple in very, very quickly. That might be one or two more that we get. I mean, I would still imagine we're all in for a late deadline day night on whatever it is. Is it the 2nd of February or whatever it is? Because there will be things that naturally go to the death because of that domino effect, and that is nothing. I know fans will moan and say, "I want it done quickly." Well, that isn't the reality of every transfer deal, is it, Kathryn? Some things they are gonna have to wait. There might be a player A that they want, but they have to wait for everything else to fall into place before they can get it. And it might be the final week of the window. It might be the final hour of the window. But if it means getting that player rather than getting a player, the fourth choice that's rubbish, and they're just taking for the sake of it, and the fans go, "Oh, why did we sign him?" Well, we felt pressure or whatever, So they will have to play that patient game, but also be very, very proactive.
Yeah, no, like you were saying, sometimes clubs won't let players leave until they know they've got a replacement coming in as well. You can sometimes, but that's why they sometimes go down to deadline day, because the player wants to come, they want to let you, but we're waiting on so and so to come to us first, and then we'll say, right, you can have him, sort of thing. So there's multiple different factors, isn't there? And I just think they've got to be smart about it in January. And as you say, it's kind of on the shoulders of Jared Dublin. He's been here before. He's made some good signings in his previous roles at other clubs. So hopefully you can find a couple of good deals for us this January. That
was exactly the case with Abu Kamara. City had made it clear a long time in advance of the window closing they wanted Kamara. They were having discussions with Norwich over a long period of time. I mean, it was first put to me quite early in the summer that Kamara was a player that they were looking at. and they had to wait. Basically, Norwich didn't want to sell him. City kept persevering, kept having discussions with Norwich. The player had told Norwich that he wanted the move. But then we got to fairly late on deadline day, and Norwich then gave the green light in principle for City to sign Kamara. Kamara was in a taxi. Kamara had got himself to London where he had his medical, and he was then on his way to Leeds to join up with the City squad, still not knowing if that move was going to be sanctioned by Norwich, because Norwich needed to sign, I can't remember the name of the lad, but I think he came from Liverpool. The young lad from Liverpool. So Norwich were like, yeah, you can have him. We've agreed everything. City had done his medical. City had agreed his salary, all his personal terms. The player had agreed the move. They'd agreed all the terms of the deal with Norwich, but Norwich wouldn't give the final say so. Was it Kai Gordon, or was it Gordon from Norwich?
Yeah,
anyway, Norwich wouldn't press the go on the EFL website until they actually signed Gordon from Liverpool. Once they signed Gordon from Liverpool, they said they pressed the button and City signed Kamara. And that is, no matter how angry we get or frustrated we get with all clubs for this perception they're too slow. That's just one example of how transfers work, and it's nothing that City can do. City did everything they could possibly do in terms of agreeing the deal, medicals, all that. They would have loved to have it done a month earlier. But the Norwich, as a selling club, would not let that happen. And yes, City could have gone, oh, okay, fair enough, we'll go elsewhere. But if Abu Kamara was there, they'd already got Miller and Bellumi. If Kamara was their next target, they wanted to wait for him. And I kind of go, well, okay, rather than just take somebody else for the sake of taking somebody else and bloating the squad and, bloating their wage bill, which is already massive, they wanted to wait for that player. And if they didn't get that player, they go, well, okay, we'll wait till January, or we'll wait again. We're not just going to sign somebody for the hell of it. And that is the way to operate. And they've got to be like that in January this time, not just take a player for the sake of it and appeasing a few supporters who are getting a bit antsy about the lack of signings. They've got a massive squad. They can't just go and sign players for the hell of it. And Ruben will have players that he wants. And he won't just want to sign somebody from wherever, just to say we've signed somebody. It will have to be the right player and the right character, more importantly.
Well, we shall see what happens. I'm looking at the clock. I think this edition of the 1904 Club has nearly run its race, and I've got to go to the Middle Child Theatre panto at Social with my grandkids. Wee Pat and Little Learn. Can I just mention this, because Paul E, I think, this first time has sent us a tweet to the 1904 Club. Genuinely feel Pedro has a bit of the Dean Windus about him. Don't think it could happen unless at some point the manager reverts to his preferred 4-2-2-2. But I'd love to see him partnered with someone who could run in behind. I think he's the perfect foil for someone, even with his physical limits. Well, that someone would be Mason Burstow. You never know. We might see two strikers at some point. I'll shut up and wish you all a Merry Christmas. As was
just
say
very
something.
quickly, Burnsy. Yeah, there's some news that's emerged since we last recorded. I know we're waiting for the new structure, the management structure, to be announced by the football club. We obviously Jared Dublin has been confirmed as sporting director. Obviously, Tan's replacement hasn't yet been officially confirmed, but we do know that Cem Aravoglu has been appointed as a director to Hull City. And also Mustafa Yokes, who we know has been working with the club since the takeover almost 3 years ago. He's been promoted to director. That's via Company's House. We're still waiting for official confirmation from the football club in terms of how it looks. So hopefully we'll get that in due course. So that is that. We've not had
play up front.
Yeah, and out wide. We've not had much chance to talk about Preston, but obviously City at Preston on Boxing Day. Fingers crossed they get 3 points there, and then on to Blackburn. But we will have a podcast after Boxing Day. So apologies for the Christmas chat if it wasn't your thing. We wanted to try and make it lighthearted. It was much easier because City won the game. We were all delirious, I think, and just so pleased for everybody that's had to watch 3 months, 80 days of nothing. So Merry Christmas, Burnsy.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Kathryn, is that your Grinch jumper you've got on? Is it?
It is, yeah, it's a Grinch jumper. Yeah, I do have a Hull City Christmas one somewhere, but I can't find it. So the Grinch wasn't really appropriate given we won, but because I can see a little Grinch in your background, I feel like it's worked out all right.
Yeah, we love the Grinch, and regular watchers on YouTube will know that I have adorned the Grinch jumper in previous, but I wanted to go with the snowman because it's got a smiley, happy face, and we should all be smiley, happy after Hull City's win on Saturday. So look, I'm gonna shut up because Burnsy's got to go and he's going to be in the nativity, I think, as Santa Scrooge. Thank you, Kathryn, for watching. Thanks to Prutts for his cameo earlier on. Fletch, hopefully you get your whatever it is you need for your car on Santa's list this week. The last show before Christmas. Everybody, thank you so much for your love and support throughout the year. Merry Christmas, one and all. Whatever you're doing, we hope you have a great time. If you go into Deepdale on Boxing Day, a safe journey. We will see you there. Merry Christmas, one and all.